Hi there, Kevin Walder here, your host for the Oracle Scroll. Can we talk? Hello, and here we are back with another episode of Can We Talk? This one might be called Now We're Talking, but this is just a brief glimpse at my journey to spiritual enlightenment. It is not over. I have not achieved that spiritual enlightenment that has eluded so many before me. But here we are in our discussion of what constitutes spirituality. We have become, as a community, quite accustomed to hearing and maybe even saying that we are not religious, but we are spiritual. We do not abide by a particular creed, and we try to make connections of our own. We try to make spirituality a personal experience. Unfortunately, we're not very good at it. And I'm being quite honest about myself as well as many people that I see around me. As I mentioned in earlier episodes, I rejected the so-called Christian approach to spirituality as being horribly flawed and never producing the results that we were told we should expect. And in the process of rejecting that particular way of life, and began to adopt new ways of seeing things, new ways of appreciating spirituality. And personal connections were made along the way. But I found myself falling back into the old routine of accepting someone else's experience as what I should expect from myself. We all know, we've all been taught that comparing ourselves to anyone else is an exercise in futility. We cannot allow it to cloud our vision. So doing that sort of thing and accepting someone else's rules, someone else's experience, someone else's connection, and applying it to our own lives is very frustrating, and sometimes it leads us to despair. We simply just cannot live up to what seems to be expected of us. But ultimately, the biggest problem that we have with it is it still allows us an out. It allows us to never take responsibility for our own actions, our own decisions, our own dreams, and our own ways of thinking. It allows us to fall back on someone else's formula, someone else's ritual, someone else's dogma. It allows us to accept what someone else has decided is exactly what we need, whether we really feel it or not. And that, to me, is probably one of the saddest parts of spiritual advancement and spiritual enlightenment. It's a lonely road. It's a road that only we can travel. Now, that doesn't mean we just need to give up and we need to stop right here, because that is totally destructive. And we don't need to put that kind of burden upon ourselves. But how do we rewrite what has been written as far as our own spirituality? Well, first of all, we can quit trying to transcend our human experience. Much has been written about our spiritual experience and how we're just a human having we're just a spirit being having a human experience. And that somewhat is true, but that diminishes our role as humans. We are humans. We have to function as humans. We have to function as humans in this world. This imperfect, this flawed world. We still have to work within those bounds. So how do we do that while we're just pushing aside all of our own responsibility and allowing others to take it on, allowing others to be responsible for our own salvation, if that were the word we wanted to use? And I put that in air quotes, by the way. How do we function as humans and still experience a spiritual connection? It's a question that we've all had to entertain, and a question that some of us have chosen not to explore too deeply. And that's a shame, because that is where our real growth will happen. It's when we learn to rely upon ourselves. We learn to take responsibility for our own actions. And I've always thought that that was probably one of the biggest things that religion does for us, and that's what makes it so popular, is it allows us to just shrug our shoulders, walk away. Even conspiracy theories will do the same thing for us, because we believed, we were told, we were led to believe. All those words have been said so frequently, especially in the last few weeks and months. So now, all we have to do is figure out where we are, what we're doing, and why we're doing it. And yes, it is not an easy thing, and I'm not saying it's something you can actually do alone. Maybe it's time to put together a party of some sort, that you are actually working with other people who are seeking the same things you are. There are a myriad of spiritual paths out there. Some are devised in cultures that we don't understand, in languages we don't understand. And if we were to tune in to a TV evangelist and they are allegedly speaking in a tongue that we don't understand, personally I find that rather humorous. And yet we're asked to accept that very same thing from other people, other spiritual practitioners. And that doesn't make any sense. How can there be two sets of rules? We have to apply one set of rules to everyone, not just the ones that we happen to approve. And this makes it a little more difficult and a little more challenging for us. So how are we going to mature, and how are we going to reach and continue reaching for that enlightened kind of situation? To refer to one of those ancient ways of thinking and philosophy, allegedly it's attributed to the Buddha, who said that you chop wood and carry water before enlightenment, and after enlightenment you're still chopping wood and carrying water. Very much true. We're still humans. We cannot transcend our human experience. We don't want to. Look how hard we fight to stay alive. When we're threatened in any way, whether it's by disease or confrontation, when we're threatened in any way, we will do anything and spend any amount of money to preserve our life, our physical human life. If it weren't important, why would we do that? Why would that even be a thing for us to consider doing? If it was actually something we need to get rid of anyway, why not welcome it, embrace it, and move on to the next level? So, can we talk? I would love to hear some feedback. I'd love to hear other people's experience. This is my experience, and I'm not saying that I have the answers. I don't have all the answers. In fact, I have often said, and I continue to say on a daily basis, I hope that I am lucky enough to have a better question tomorrow than I had today. I hope that I am lucky enough to have a more in-depth understanding with that question. But it's still a question. And I am definitely not able to point to any solid answer, and that's okay. Not knowing is part of that human experience. We never know when something is going to happen for us or to us. We never know when we're going to be called upon to act in a more or less superhuman kind of way. So when we think about our spiritual advancement, who are we leaning on? Or what are we leaning on? Have we just simply chosen another holy book? Have we just chosen another guru? Have we just chosen another Christ figure to follow? Or are we really exploring ourselves and exploring what we need as human beings, as people in this situation of living a human life with spiritual connections? We're surrounded by spiritual energy. We know that. But how do we make use of it without divorcing ourselves completely from the physical, human side of our life? What can we do as humans, and while embracing our humanness, what can we do to advance ourselves spiritually without relying upon someone else's understanding, someone else's teaching, someone else's words? Even if they're words we don't understand, that always bothers me. There are enough words in our own language that we can use to explain ourselves. And it bothers me that we seem to attach ourselves to a foreign word because it just seems right. Well, maybe it's time we go within and spend a little time with that hermit card that we talked about not too long ago. Spend a little time getting to know ourselves. It is the most important relationship we will ever have, and so many of us have forgotten who we are, if we ever knew. Can we talk? I think we're talking. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Oracle Scroll. Please visit my website at kevinwalder.com, where you can purchase any of the services that I offer. Also, check out my books, Tarot for Lunch, Lessons from the Cards, and 22 Teachers, Healing Lessons from the Major Arcana. Both are available now at Amazon.com. And most importantly, never miss another episode. Click below, click the subscribe button and the bell to make sure you're always up to date.